On Christmas night in 2002, while snow fell softly outside a quiet American town, 7-year-old Lily Harper vanished from her family's living room in less than a minute. The house was warm, glowing with Christmas lights and music, her parents only a few steps away. When the doorbell rang, Lily ran ahead, laughing, convinced Santa had come just for her. Her mother heard her say 3 innocent words, "He's here." Then there was silence. When her parents reached the front door moments later, it stood wide open, cold air pouring inside, snow drifting across the floor. Lily was gone. No footsteps, no screams, no trace. Christmas ended that night, not just for the Harper family, but for the entire town that believed it was safe. For years, the case haunted investigators. Suspects came and went. An innocent man's life was quietly destroyed by suspicion. The town moved on, but Lily's mother, Rachel Harper, never did. Every birthday passed in silence. Every Christmas became a reminder of what was stolen. And slowly, the case faded into a cold file marked unsolved. Until 9 years later, in 2011, Rachel walked into a police station with shaking hands and tear-filled eyes and told detectives about something she could no longer ignore. A memory, a detail she had buried deep inside herself to survive. Something she had seen that night, something she finally understood. What she revealed would reopen the case, expose a carefully hidden truth, and lead investigators down a path no one had suspected, toward a family betrayal, a stolen childhood, and a lie that survived nearly a decade. This is not just the story of a child who disappeared on Christmas. It's the story of a mother who never stopped watching, never stopped remembering, and finally spoke the truth that brought her daughter home. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Brookfield, Vermont sat nestled in the Green Mountains like something out of a snow globe. Population 4,000. White church steeples. Maple trees lining Main Street. The kind of place where everyone knew your name, where doors stayed unlocked, where children walked to school alone without fear. The Harper family lived on Elm Avenue in a yellow Victorian house with green shutters and a wraparound porch. It was the house Rachel had grown up in, the house her parents had left her when they retired to Florida, the house where she'd always imagined raising her own children. Rachel Harper was 32 that Christmas. She had auburn hair she usually wore loose, hazel eyes that crinkled when she smiled, hands that were always busy, baking, cleaning, organizing the chaos that came with 2 young daughters. She worked part-time at the town library, spent her afternoons volunteering at the elementary school, lived for the moments when her girls laughed so hard they couldn't breathe. David Harper was 35, a contractor who'd built half the new homes in Brookfield over the past decade. Tall, broad-shouldered, with calloused hands and an easy smile. He coached Little League in the summer, helped neighbors fix broken fences, showed up when people needed him. The kind of man who made a town feel safer just by being in it. They had 2 daughters. The house was never quiet. Maya was 10, the responsible one. She had her father's dark hair and her mother's careful nature. She kept her room organized, finished homework without being asked, looked after her little sister like a guardian angel. She was already talking about being a veterinarian, already volunteering at the animal shelter on weekends. Lily was 7, wild and curious and fearless. She had blonde curls that never stayed in place, blue eyes that sparkled with mischief, a laugh that filled every room. She asked questions that had no answers. Why do stars shine? Where does the wind go? What happens to snowflakes when they melt? Her teachers said she was bright, creative, always the first to volunteer, always the last to sit still. The Harpers had traditions that held them together. Pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse every Sunday morning. Family movie night every Friday with popcorn Rachel made on the stove. Summer camping trips to Lake Champlain where the girls swam until their lips turned blue. Christmas was sacred. They cut down their own tree every year at Henderson's farm. Spent an entire Saturday decorating while hot cider simmered on the stove. Baked cookies for every neighbor on Elm Avenue. Drove through town looking at lights while Christmas carols played and the girls sang off-key. On Christmas Eve, they attended midnight service at First Presbyterian. Came home to hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. The girls hung stockings, left cookies for Santa, went to bed vibrating with anticipation. Brookfield had its own Christmas tradition that made the holiday feel magical. Every Christmas night around 7 o'clock, Walt Murphy dressed as Santa and walked door to door handing out candy canes to the children. He'd been doing it for 15 years, ever since his grandson was born. It was his gift to the town, his way of keeping Christmas alive. Walt was 68, a retired fire chief who still volunteered at the station. Everyone knew him. Everyone trusted him. When he walked down Elm Avenue in his red suit with his white beard and black boots, children pressed their faces against windows, waiting. Lily especially loved Walt's visits. She'd start watching for him at 6:30, nose against the glass, breath fogging the window. When she saw him coming, she'd squeal and beg to answer the door first. Rachel and David thought it was sweet, harmless, a small-town tradition in a place where nothing bad ever happened. This year felt perfect. Snow had started falling Christmas Eve morning and hadn't stopped. By Christmas night, Brookfield looked like a painting. Christmas morning was everything it should be. The girls woke at dawn, thundered downstairs in matching pajamas covered with penguins. Maya got the telescope she'd been wanting. Lily got a dollhouse with tiny furniture she could barely hold. Both girls got new ice skates and winter coats and books they'd stay up late reading. They spent the day in their pajamas. David made breakfast while Rachel filmed everything on the camcorder. They watched It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street. Rachel cooked prime rib and roasted vegetables and homemade rolls. By evening, the house smelled like cinnamon and pine. Nat King Cole played softly. The tree lights cast golden shadows across the walls. The girls were still in their penguin pajamas, playing with their new toys, their hair unbrushed, their faces glowing. Lily had been stationed by the window since 6:30, watching for Mr. Murphy. At 7 o'clock sharp, Rachel called everyone to the living room. Time for their final tradition, opening one last present each. David always saved something special for last. The family gathered around the tree. Maya sat cross-legged, patient. Lily bounced on her knees, still glancing at the window every few seconds. David handed Maya her present first, a medium box wrapped in silver paper. Maya opened it carefully, her face lighting up. A leather journal with her name embossed on the cover. For all her stories. She threw her arms around her father's neck. Then David reached for Lily's present, a small box wrapped in gold paper with a red ribbon, and the doorbell rang. Lily's head snapped up, her entire face transformed. She jumped to her feet, already running. It's him. It's Santa. She was across the living room before anyone could react, her small feet in fuzzy socks sliding on the hardwood floor. Lily, wait. Rachel started to stand, smiling because she knew how much this meant to her daughter. But Lily was already at the door, already reaching for the handle, already pulling it open. Rachel heard her daughter's voice, bright and breathless and full of pure joy. He's here. And then nothing. Rachel kept smiling for just a second, thinking she'd give Lily her moment, then invite Mr. Murphy inside for cookies like they did every year. But something felt wrong. The air changed. The silence stretched too long. Rachel stood up fast. Lily? Honey, no answer. She walked toward the hallway, her heart starting to race for reasons she didn't understand yet. Lily, invite Mr. Murphy in. She reached the hallway and stopped. The front door stood wide open. Cold wind rushed inside. Snow blew across the hardwood floor, melting into dark puddles. The wreath on the door swung gently. But Lily wasn't there. Rachel's breath caught. She looked outside. The porch was empty. The yard was empty. Snow fell in the yellow glow of the porch light, undisturbed except for... Wait, there were footprints. 2 sets, one small, one large, leading from the porch to the street, already filling with fresh snow. Lily. Rachel ran onto the porch in her socks. The cold bit through immediately, but she didn't feel it. She looked left, then right. The street was empty. No Santa, no Walt Murphy, no Lily. Just snow and silence and Christmas lights glowing in distant windows. Lily, where are you? Her scream cut through the quiet night. Somewhere a dog barked. Nothing else. Rachel ran back inside, her feet numb, her mind refusing to accept what was happening. David, Lily's gone. David came out of the living room, his expression confused. What do you mean gone? She opened the door, and now she's just gone. The door was standing open, and she's not there. David's face changed instantly. He pushed past Rachel, ran outside in his sweater and jeans, down the steps, into the yard. Lily Harper, answer me right now. Nothing. Rachel's hands were shaking so badly she could barely move. She checked the living room where Maya sat frozen, her new journal forgotten in her lap, tears already streaming down her face. Where's Lily? Maya shook her head, unable to speak. Rachel tore through the house. Kitchen, bathroom, coat closet. She ran upstairs, checked both bedrooms, under beds and closets, everywhere a 7-year-old might hide if this was a game. Lily, this isn't funny. Come out right now. David came back inside, snow in his hair, his face pale as death. She's not outside. I checked everywhere. She's not there. Rachel felt like the floor was tilting. She was right there. She opened the door, said, "He's here," and then nothing. Maybe 30 seconds, and she was just gone. David grabbed his phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling the police." He dialed while Rachel ran through the house again, calling Lily's name until her throat burned. Maya sat by the Christmas tree, sobbing quietly, her new present still wrapped in her lap. The 911 operator answered. David's voice cracked as he spoke. "My daughter is missing. She's 7 years old. Someone was at our door, and now she's gone." The operator asked questions. David answered as best he could. 5 minutes, maybe less. Penguin pajamas and pink fuzzy socks. No medical conditions. She wouldn't run away. Someone took her. Within 8 minutes, 3 patrol cars arrived, lights flashing blue and red against the white snow. Sheriff Thomas Bennett got out, a man in his mid-50s who'd known the Harper family for years. He walked up the front steps, where Rachel stood shivering, arms wrapped around herself. "Rachel, David, tell me exactly what happened." Rachel explained through chattering teeth. The doorbell. Lily running to answer it, because she thought it was Mr. Murphy's annual Santa visit. Her excited voice, "He's here." Then silence. Rachel reaching the door 30 seconds later to find it standing open and Lily gone. Bennett's expression went hard. "You're sure it was supposed to be Walt Murphy?" "He does it every year," David said. "Same time, same route. The girls wait for him." Lily's been at the window since 6:30. Bennett radioed immediately. "Get to Walt Murphy's house. Now, bring him in." Within minutes, officers were at Walt's door 3 blocks away. He answered wearing his red Santa suit, holding a bag of candy canes, looking genuinely confused. "What's wrong?" "Lily Harper is missing Walt. We need you to come with us." Walt's face drained of color. "Missing? What? I haven't even been to their house yet. I was heading that way next." The officers brought him to the station anyway. Back at the Harper house, the search began. Officers walked every street, knocked on every door, asked if anyone had seen anything. Nobody had. The snow that made Brookfield look magical now made the search impossible. Fresh powder covered footprints within minutes. The wind erased evidence as fast as it formed. Neighbors poured out to help. Word spread like wildfire. Within an hour, half the town was searching. People who'd been finishing Christmas dinner put on boots and coats and joined the search lines. Rachel stood in her doorway, watching strangers look for her daughter, and felt her mind breaking apart. By 9 o'clock, the FBI had been notified. By 10, roadblocks were up on every highway. By 11, Lily had been missing for 4 hours. The temperature had dropped to 12 degrees. Snow was still falling. Sheriff Bennett came back to the house at midnight. We've searched a 3-mile radius. Every house, every building, every vehicle. We got helicopters coming at first light. FBI is sending agents from Burlington. We're doing everything we can. Rachel's legs buckled. David caught her, held her upright, his own tears soaking into her hair. Maya had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from crying. She was 10 years old and had just learned that the world wasn't safe. Rachel kept whispering the same thing over and over. I should have answered the door. I should have gone with her. David held her tighter, but had no words that would help. And somewhere in the darkness, a little girl in penguin pajamas was being driven away from the only home she'd ever known. The first week after Lily disappeared felt endless. Rachel and David didn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except their daughter. Every phone call sent their hearts racing. Every knock at the door brought hope that crashed into disappointment. By December 30th, the case had exploded across New England. News vans from Boston and New York parked on Elm Avenue. Reporters knocked on doors, asking neighbors what they knew about the missing girl, about the Santa Claus who took her, about whether Brookfield had been hiding something dark. Rachel refused to leave the house. She stayed inside with the curtains drawn, staring at Lily's empty chair, waiting for news that never came. David handled the media because someone had to. He stood on their porch on a gray December morning, cameras pointed at his face, and read from a statement he'd written at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. He said Lily was trusting and kind, that she believed in Santa Claus with her whole heart, that someone had used that innocence to lure her away. He begged whoever took her to bring her home. Please, it's Christmas. Bring our daughter home. His voice broke, and the cameras captured everything. That clip would play on news programs for weeks. At the sheriff's station, Walt Murphy sat in an interrogation room for the 3rd day in a row. He'd been cleared within 24 hours. His timeline checked out. Neighbors confirmed he'd been at their houses when Lily disappeared, but the town didn't care about evidence. Someone spray-painted "Child Stealer" across his garage door. Someone threw a brick through his living room window. He started getting death threats at all hours. His daughter drove up from Boston on New Year's Eve and found her father sitting in the dark, looking 20 years older than he had a week ago. Dad, you need to leave. This town has lost its mind. Walt shook his head. Leaving makes me look guilty. I didn't do anything wrong. Lily's out there somewhere, and running away won't help find her. His daughter begged him to think about his safety. Walt said he'd stay until they found Lily, until they found who actually took her. But the damage was done. Within 2 weeks, Walt Murphy sold his house and moved to Boston to live with his daughter. Another casualty of fear and grief and the need for someone to blame. The FBI took over the case. Lead investigator was Special Agent Victoria Cross, 46 years old, 20 years of experience with child abductions. She sat at the Harper's kitchen table and asked the hard questions. Had anyone shown unusual interest in Lily? Any strangers in the neighborhood? Anyone who might have known their Christmas traditions? Rachel and David couldn't think of anyone. Everything had been normal, perfect, until the doorbell rang. Cross asked about Walt Murphy. They said he'd lived in Brookfield forever, that he'd started the Santa tradition after his grandson was born, that he'd never made them uncomfortable, never said or done anything that seemed wrong. Cross asked if they were absolutely certain it was Walt at their door. Rachel went pale. We never actually saw who was there. Lily answered before we could get to the door. That was the question nobody could answer. If Walt Murphy hadn't rung their doorbell, then who had? The investigation consumed January and February. FBI agents interviewed hundreds of people, checked security cameras from every business in town, followed up on tips that led nowhere. No ransom demands came. No witnesses surfaced. No body was found. Lily had simply vanished. Rachel quit her job, at the library. She couldn't function, couldn't make small talk, couldn't pretend everything was fine. David kept working because bills didn't stop coming, but his heart wasn't in it. The house felt like a tomb. They kept Lily's room exactly as she'd left it. Her half-open present still sat by the Christmas tree that Rachel couldn't take down until March. Her penguin pajamas still lay folded on her bed. Maya came home from her grandmother's in February. She was quieter now, didn't smile as much, spent most of her time in her room. She'd lost her sister and part of her childhood in one night. The grief changed them. Rachel started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma. David started drinking more than he should. Their marriage strained under weight that grew heavier every day. They loved each other, but love couldn't fill the space Lily had left behind. Rachel couldn't let go. She started a support group for parents of missing children. Printed new flyers every month with age-progressed photos showing what Lily might look like now. 8 years old, 9, 10. She'd drive to neighboring towns, tape flyers to bulletin boards, hand them to strangers who glanced and walked away. The years crawled forward. By 2005, the case was cold. The FBI had moved on. Sheriff Bennett had retired. The new sheriff reviewed Lily's file once a year and found nothing new. Most people in Brookfield stopped talking about Lily Harper. The case became local legend. The girl who vanished on Christmas night. A cautionary tale parents told their children. But Rachel never stopped. She kept Lily's room perfect. Celebrated her birthday every year with cake and candles in an empty room. Bought Christmas presents for a daughter she'd never seen grow up. David thought she needed to accept reality. Rachel thought accepting meant giving up. The distance between them grew until they were strangers living in the same house. Maya left for college in 2008. Said she loved her parents but couldn't live in a museum anymore. Couldn't breathe in a house that refused to move forward. By 2011, Rachel was 41. Her auburn hair had gone mostly gray. David was 44, moved slower, looked older than his years. They still lived in the yellow Victorian house on Elm Avenue. Still kept Lily's room exactly as it had been 9 years ago. And Rachel still remembered something she'd tried so hard to forget. Something she'd seen that Christmas night. Something she'd buried deep because looking at it felt impossible. Because understanding it meant facing a truth so painful she'd chosen denial instead. But denial was crumbling. It started small. A nightmare that kept repeating. Rachel standing in the hallway, looking at the open door, seeing something in the darkness beyond. Something familiar. Something wrong. She'd wake up gasping, David asking what was wrong. Rachel saying nothing, just a bad dream. But it wasn't nothing. The memory pushed harder. Rachel started seeing things during the day. Flashes. A hand reaching for Lily. A profile in the darkness. A car parked where it shouldn't have been. Her therapist asked what she was remembering. Rachel said she didn't know. But that was a lie. She knew. She'd always known. She just hadn't been ready to see it. On December 20th, 2011, Rachel sat in Lily's room like she did every Christmas season. The small tree in the corner had one present underneath. A silver necklace with a star pendant wrapped in paper covered with snowflakes. She was about to light the candles on the cake when the memory broke through completely. She saw it. All of it. The moment she'd reached the hallway 9 years ago. The door standing open. Snow blowing inside. And beyond the porch, in the darkness, illuminated for just a second by a passing car's headlights. A figure, not wearing a Santa suit, wearing a dark coat, holding Lily's hand, walking fast toward a vehicle parked half a block away. And Rachel had seen the profile. Just for a second. Just enough. She'd known that profile. She'd known that walk. She'd known that car. But her mind had refused to accept it. Had buried it so deep she'd almost convinced herself it hadn't happened. Her hands started shaking. The match fell from her fingers. Because the person she'd seen that night, the person who'd taken Lily, wasn't a stranger. Rachel grabbed her coat, grabbed her car keys, left the house without telling David where she was going. She drove to the sheriff's station in 20 minutes that should have taken 30. walked inside with tears streaming down her face, and asked to speak to someone about Lily Harper's case. The deputy at the desk looked surprised, asked if she had new information. Rachel nodded, unable to speak. They brought her to an interview room, called Special Agent Victoria Cross, who'd retired from the FBI but still lived in Burlington. Cross drove down immediately. She sat across from Rachel in that small room and asked what she remembered. Rachel's voice shook so badly she could barely form words. I saw who took her. That night, I saw them. I've known for 9 years, but I couldn't. Cross leaned forward. Rachel, who did you see? Rachel closed her eyes, took a breath, said the name she'd been running from for 9 years. My sister. I saw my sister. The room went silent. Cross asked her to say it again. Rachel opened her eyes. They were filled with 9 years of guilt and grief and denial. My sister, Vanessa. She took Lily. I saw her that night. I saw her profile when the car passed. I saw her walking Lily toward a car. I saw her. I've always seen her. I couldn't let myself believe it. She broke down completely, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Cross waited, let her cry, then asked the questions that needed asking. Tell me about Vanessa. Rachel wiped her face with shaking hands. Vanessa was her younger sister, 38 years old. She'd always wanted children, but couldn't have them. She tried IVF, tried adoption. Nothing worked. It had broken something inside her. She'd visited Brookfield 2 months before Christmas 2002, stayed with Rachel and David for a week, spent time with the girls, bonded especially with Lily, who'd followed her everywhere. When Vanessa left, she'd hugged Lily tight, whispered something Rachel couldn't hear, driven away in tears. Rachel had thought Vanessa was grieving her inability to have children, had felt sorry for her, had invited her to come back for Christmas. Vanessa had said no, said it was too painful to be around children right now, said she needed time alone. Rachel hadn't pushed, hadn't thought anything of it when Vanessa stopped answering calls in December. Figured she was dealing with her grief in her own way. And then Christmas night happened, and in the chaos and terror and shock, Rachel had seen something her mind refused to process. Her sister, standing in the darkness, taking Lily's hand, walking away. But accepting that meant accepting the unacceptable, meant believing her own sister had done something so monstrous it couldn't be real. So Rachel's mind had buried it, had convinced her she'd seen nothing, had let her believe a stranger had taken Lily, until 9 years of guilt and nightmares finally broke through the denial. Cross asked where Vanessa lived. Rachel said Portland, Maine. She was a real estate agent, lived alone. They'd barely spoken since Lily disappeared. Rachel had blamed herself for not protecting her daughter. Vanessa had kept her distance, said she couldn't handle being around the grief. Cross asked if Rachel had any recent photos of Vanessa. Rachel pulled out her phone, found a photo from a family gathering 3 years ago. Vanessa smiling in the camera. Dark hair, green eyes, slender build. Cross took the phone, left the room, came back 10 minutes later with 2 other officers. Rachel, we're going to Portland. Tonight. Will you come with us? Rachel nodded. They were in the car within an hour. The drive to Portland took 3 hours. Cross called ahead, coordinated with local police, got a warrant for Vanessa's house and workplace. Rachel sat in the back seat, staring out the window, watching Vermont disappear behind them, feeling like she was in a dream. They arrived at Vanessa's house at 11 o'clock at night. A small ranch-style home on a quiet street. Lights were on inside. Cross knocked. Waited. Knocked again. The door opened. Vanessa stood there in jeans and a sweater, her hair shorter than it had been, her face confused. Victoria? Rachel? What's going on? Cross held up her badge. Vanessa Harper, we have a warrant to search your home in connection with the disappearance of Lily Harper. Vanessa's face went white. What? I don't understand. We need you to step outside, ma'am. Vanessa looked at Rachel with pure betrayal in her eyes. What did you tell them? Rachel couldn't speak, could only stare at the sister she'd loved her entire life. Officers moved past Vanessa into the house. Cross stayed on the porch with Vanessa, asking her where she'd been on Christmas night, 2002. Vanessa said home. Alone. She'd been devastated about not being able to have children and couldn't handle being around family. Cross asked if anyone could confirm that. Vanessa hesitated. No, I was alone. Inside the house, officers searched. It didn't take long. In the back bedroom, the one Vanessa never let anyone enter, they found her. A 16-year-old girl. Long blonde hair. Blue eyes that looked too old for her age. Sitting on a bed surrounded by books and clothes and years of carefully constructed lies. She looked up when the officers entered. Her voice was quiet, confused. What's happening? The officer asked her name. She said Lily. Lily what? She hesitated. Lily Harper. Do you know your real last name? Tears filled her eyes. I think so. I think I used to be someone else. They brought her outside, walked her past Vanessa, who was crying, reaching for her, saying she'd given her a better life. She'd saved her. Rachel and David couldn't take care of her properly. They walked her past Rachel, who stood frozen on the sidewalk. Lily stopped, looked at the woman standing there. Older now, gray hair, tired eyes. Something flickered in Lily's memory. A face, a voice, a feeling of safety and warmth and home. Mom! The word broke Rachel apart. She crossed the distance in 2 steps, pulled Lily into her arms, held her like she'd wanted to for 3,285 days. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you. I'm so sorry it took me this long. Lily didn't hug back at first. 9 years was a long time. These people were strangers, even if they felt familiar. But slowly, carefully, her arms came up, wrapped around her mother. And somewhere in her fractured memory, something shifted. The smell of her mother's perfume, the sound of her voice, the feeling of being held by someone who'd loved her before she could remember. Back in Brookfield, David was sitting in Lily's room when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Harper? Yes. This is Special Agent Victoria Cross. I'm calling from Portland, Maine. We found your daughter. David dropped the phone. His legs gave out. He sat on Lily's bed, hand over his mouth, unable to breathe. Maya heard the crash from downstairs, ran up to find her father sobbing. He picked up the phone. Cross repeated it. They'd found Lily. She'd been living in Portland with Vanessa Harper for 9 years. She was alive. She was coming home. David couldn't speak, could only nod even though Cross couldn't see him. Maya grabbed the phone, asked if this was real. Cross said yes. Maya started crying. After 9 years of grief and guilt and wondering, her little sister was coming home. David and Maya were in the car within 10 minutes. The drive to Portland took 2.5 hours, but felt like days. When they walked into the Portland police station and an officer led them to a private room, David knew it was real. Lily was sitting on a couch. She was 16 now, so much older than the 7-year-old they'd lost. Taller, thinner, with hair pulled back in a ponytail. But it was her. It was their baby. David crossed the room before he realized he was moving. Knelt in front of Lily, his hands shaking as he reached up to touch her face. Lily. Lily looked at him with confused eyes that were trying so hard to remember. Dad. The word destroyed him. He pulled her close, held her like he'd wanted to for 9 years. I never stopped looking. Not one single day. Maya stood in the doorway, crying. She sat down slowly next to David, put her hand on Lily's shoulder. I'm Maya. I'm your sister. Lily looked at her. Something flickered in her memory. A face. A voice reading stories at bedtime. Someone who'd always protected her. Maya, I remember you. They sat together in that small room while police processed evidence and took statements. 3 members of a family that had been broken for 9 years, slowly finding their way back to each other. Vanessa Harper was arrested and charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, conspiracy, fraud, and a dozen other counts. The trial was held 8 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. Testimony from Rachel about what she'd seen that Christmas night. Testimony from Lily about 9 years of isolation and lies. Records showing Vanessa had homeschooled Lily under a false identity. Phone records showing she'd been in Brookfield on Christmas night 2002. Vanessa's defense was that she'd saved Lily, that Rachel and David were neglectful parents, that she'd given Lily a better life. But Lily's testimony destroyed that narrative. She talked about being told her real parents didn't want her, about being kept isolated, homeschooled, forbidden from making friends, about 9 years of careful manipulation and control. The jury took 90 minutes to convict. Vanessa was sentenced to 30 years in prison. The judge's words were harsh. He said she'd stolen 9 years from Lily Harper, destroyed her childhood, manipulated her into believing lies, caused immeasurable pain to a family that had done nothing to deserve it. Walt Murphy, who'd moved to Boston in shame, received a formal apology from the Brookfield Police Department. They offered a settlement. Walt accepted it and donated most of it to organizations that helped wrongfully accused people. When reporters asked how he felt, Walt said he was glad Lily had been found but sad it took 9 years. That a little girl had spent her childhood stolen because one person couldn't accept she couldn't have children of her own. He said he'd never go back to Brookfield. That the town had taught him how quickly fear could destroy innocent lives. That he'd never wear a Santa suit again. Lily's recovery was slow. She moved back to Brookfield with Rachel and David, back to her old room that Rachel had kept exactly as she'd left it. The first months were brutal. Her memories came back in fragments. She'd remember Maya reading to her, then nothing until she remembered Vanessa. The two lives overlapped and contradicted. Maya took a semester off from college. They sat in Lily's room for hours, looking at photo albums, talking about memories Lily couldn't quite reach. Rachel and David got Lily into therapy with a specialist who understood trauma and manipulation. They learned her triggers, her patterns, how to support her without overwhelming her. Slowly, over months and years, Lily started to heal. She finished high school online, started taking classes at community college, started volunteering at a center for missing children. She wrote a book about her experience when she was 23. On the dedication page, she wrote, "To Mom, who finally remembered. To Dad, who never stopped believing. To Maya, who never forgot me. And to every family still searching." Rachel's support group grew. She helped dozens of families navigate the nightmare she'd lived through, became an advocate for better training on family abductions, which made up a significant percentage of missing children cases. David went back to contracting, started coaching youth basketball again, found ways to rebuild the life that had been shattered. The Harper family never forgot the 9 years they'd lost, but they didn't let those years define the rest of their lives. They celebrated Lily's 17th birthday together 6 months after she came home. All 4 of them crowded around a cake. Rachel cried happy tears for the first time in almost a decade. Lily looked at her family, these people who'd refused to give up, who'd searched for her even when it seemed impossible, and felt something she hadn't felt in 9 years. She felt like she was home. Really, truly home. The truth did surface. It took 9 years and a mother brave enough to finally face what she'd seen. Brave enough to speak it out loud, even when it meant accusing her own sister. Brave enough to choose her daughter over denial. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that the truth always finds its way out, then share it. Because somewhere, another family is still searching. Another person is still missing. Another truth is waiting to be spoken. Pay attention to the details others miss. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And remember that sometimes the hardest truth to face is the one that comes from inside your own family. Before you go, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in Rachel's position? Could you have faced a truth that devastating? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your perspective matters. If stories like this one move you, if you believe in the power of truth and the resilience of families who refuse to give up, then do me a favor. Hit that like button so more people can find this story. Subscribe to the channel because we bring you cases that matter, stories that need to be told. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss when we post. And share this video with someone who loves true crime, someone who believes that justice, even when it takes 9 years, is always worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, the truth is always there, waiting. Sometimes it just takes someone brave enough to finally see it.